Welcome to Antarctica Did That For Me. We're a podcast for everyday people with a little adventure in their hearts. We're Keri and Cassa, and we've spent huge chunks of our time living and working in Antarctica. Welcome to a journey that changed our lives. We hope it will change yours too. Hey everyone, and welcome to Antarctica Did That For Me. I am sitting here with my co-host, Cassa Grant, and my name is Keri Nelson. We're really happy to be talking with you again this week. And this week, we're going to say this. Antarctica is a weird place, and it's populated by a lot of weirdos. And that means some weirdo things make their way to the bottom of the world all the time. And so today, we're going to talk about the weirdest things that we have personally brought to the ice and things that we know have been brought by other Antarcticans to the ice. Before we get really rolling, we have to say that this episode is brought to you by not just Cassa and not just Keri, but it's brought to you by many fellow Antarcticans who knocked it out of the park when we asked an Antarctican Facebook group for their input on this. They did not disappoint, Cassa. I was reading 280 comments from people and I was dying. What did you think when you read through that list? It was so funny.
It just delighted me to the depths of my soul. I was sharing it with a mutual friend of ours. I was sharing it with my partner, and it just brought back so many great memories of so many awesome people. So I was really touched that people contributed that way.
Antarcticans, you are hilarious. And the brains of the people who make their way to the bottom of the world, what we think to bring down there, crazy. I will have to say that I just recently was talking to a CNN reporter about an article that came out today. So check out this article about living on the bottom of the world. She interviewed some other Antarcticans from other stations, other programs, and those Antarcticans did not bring nearly the amount of stuff that American Antarcticans are bringing to the ice. So it's doable to have a season without bringing these things. But that's not the subject today. We're talking about things we did bring. Let's get into it. What are some crazy things that you have brought to the ice?
Well, first, I think it's good to just give people a little bit of an overview of how it gets down there. So we have a luggage allowance, and it depends season to season. So there are things that we can bring in our packed luggage. And then there is an APO post office at McMurdo that we can actually have things shipped down. However, it takes a long time for them to get there. And we're discouraged from sending a whole bunch of stuff. Some of it can come down at various times. So that is how a lot of this stuff gets down there. In the distant past, people had even more access to larger amounts of stuff that could be shipped. So some big things came down when there was things that were actually coming down on a literal ship that came down once a year. So that's not how it is done now, but this is part of how some of this stuff gets down there. And then a lot of this stuff stays down there. So a lot of it's still floating around down there. So some of the weirdest things for me, I think, were aspirational things that were all about who I wanted to be and who I thought I would be on the ice. And then a lot of times I didn't use those things. But then sometimes I did use certain things. So I'm a big costume person. I did a lot of crafting stuff. So I always had my silver cape. I always had an excellent costume box. And I always had excessive amounts of crafting goods. So that was mostly what I was sending down.
Costumes are so important. I mean, they really are. When I was thinking about structuring this episode and explaining what was like normal things versus what was weird things, I actually had costumes in the normal things category. I didn't think that was like an exceptional thing. Then I realized if you haven't gone to Antarctica, it would not occur to you that costumes are just like the right shampoo that you want to bring down. No, costumes are like breathing air down there. Everybody brings costumes. It's kind of a given. I don't know what it is about the place, but it's extremely inspiring. When you started getting into like why we bring those things down, there are a lot of reasons. Aspirational is absolutely part of it. Comfort is part of it. Anticipating future boredom that you think you might have. I'm going down to the bottom of the world. There's nothing going on down there. I'm going to be bored. I'm going to have to bring things. That's definitely something I thought, especially my first year, when I realized after that there was no way I was going to be bored or have time to do anything that I thought I was going to do in my head before I arrived there. But that's definitely a motivator of some of the things that come down. And, there's just the basics of like comfort foods or the kinds of toiletries you like, or, warm things that you like, or things like that. But those are basic things. We're not talking about the basic things now. We're talking about the exceptional things. The way we're going to do this is we're going to name a category, which we had a lot of suggestions come into us, or we've brought these things ourselves. We're going to award the best of that category that we heard and maybe mention a couple of other things we like. I'm going to let Cassa start us out with our awards of the weirdest things that came to the ice.
Well, this one, again, is one that is very important to me, costumes. There's actually a place called Gear Issue that you can rent out certain costumes for big themed parties. But if you're really a connoisseur, you have to bring your own. So
yes,
I have brought silver go-go boots. Again, a lot of silver, I guess, now that I think about it. All of these kinds of things. It feels like space down there sometimes. So there's a lot of that theme going on. Mad Max costumes, these types of things. But the winner in this category, we got so many good submissions here. The winner of this category was not just one, not two, but 30 Santa suits. Which later turned into something called Antarctica, which I actually did not experience. Keri, you got to experience that. So tell us about Antarctica.
I definitely cannot claim credit for this. I've only been part of a couple of Antarcticas, and I do not believe the Antarctican who ended up with these 30 Santa and elf and maybe reindeer outfits brought these down herself, but they were sent to her by friends who knew she would put it to use. The gist of Antarctica was the costumes would come out. You'd round up just a whole gang of people who would be willing to put these suits on, and you'd just run all over station. You'd run everywhere. You'd go into the exercise room and do a few push-ups in your Santa suit, and then you'd run down to Hut Point and take some pictures by the cross, and maybe you would go and have a meal in the galley, and you would just try to do on a day off all of these Antarctica things and just take these pictures, and it was just about as great as you can imagine a bunch of Antarcticans running around the snowy continent in a bunch of Santa gear could be. Really fun. Big shout out to the people who made that happen, to the person who was really involved in that, because I think that brought a lot. And it was definitely an annual event for many years that I was there. There may still be some of those Santa suits bopping around. I don't know who might be in charge of that event anymore, but it's a pretty funny thing to do.
Seems reasonable. I mean, right?
Seems reasonable. Come on. And it just looks so pretty. That's right.
Yeah. It's snowy. Ninth place was musical instruments, Keri, and you were going to share a little bit about that.
Yes. In ninth place, when I go to Antarctica, if weight allows, I bring musical instruments. I usually bring my own personal guitar because there are guitars on station, but when you have your own, you can just kind of play whenever you want to. And I've also in the past brought basically a desktop recording studio, which isn't as big as you think. It's really just like your computer, an audio interface, a good mic, and maybe a little keyboard. I have a suitcase that fits that little keyboard perfectly, which is why I travel with a hard-sided suitcase. But I realize now that's just scratching the tip of the iceberg and the musical instruments that people somehow by hook or crook get down to the ice, mentioned to us in this great group of Antarcticans who told us what they brought. People brought a bassoon, an oboe, violins, banjos, theremins. Somebody built this full-size vibraphone, which is like desk-sized. And they had that at the South Pole forever and ever. Big keyboards, but we have to pick a winner in all of these categories. So I'm going to say that the winner was that a friend of ours, a mutual friend, shipped down her own bagpipes to the ice, which she played on the ice and then later played in a bagpipe rock band off of the ice. But also, just mentioned, she would not have been the first person to bring bagpipes down to the ice. There's a very famous photo of one of the original Scottish delegates for the 1902, I think, Scottish delegation. You can look this up on the internet very easily. He's playing his bagpipes to a very indifferent penguin on the ice, but bagpipes are going to take my winner. Oh, I have to mention another friend shipped down not one, but two theremins to the ice. If you don't know what a theremin is, it's this metal pole that then makes weird synthy noises as you move your hand closer or further away. And I've been part of bands that have used that on the ice, and I've seen, those theremins get great use. So there's a whole orchestra down there. Very funny, very cool. I
always think of like movies with like the stereotypical dorky guy who plays a theremin. And it makes me really happy that someone shipped that down.
I had a friend on the ice one winter, and we had a ukulele keyboard band. It was just the two of us, but the name of the band was My Other Band as a Theremin. There was no theremin in that band, but they're pretty great. Okay, next category, Cassa, bring it in.
Okay, so pets/mascots/things to cuddle. So
yes,
this is a little bit of a broad category, but it is very important. These are basically comfort items. Like, we're big kids, essentially. Yeah. We need to have our little binky and our teddy bear. But my favorites that I think that people talked about were a hand knitted Robert Plant doll. And if you don't know Led Zeppelin, then please just stop listening right now and go listen to like Led Zeppelin. Anyway, I'm a lifetime fan of Led Zeppelin. So I love that someone not only had a Robert Plant doll, but took the time to hand knit it. Like, thank you for that. That's love. Right up there. The honorable mention in this category has to go to a mutual friend of ours who has 2 life-size stuffed pet sheep. And that must have been a fun one to get down there. But she's had those for years. She keeps them down there. She goes back year after year, and they are just there keeping her company. So that is 8th
what
place.
A cuddle.
So 7th place. Yes.
Yeah, what a cuddle. Well, there are some other kinds of pets that kind of make their way from season to season. They could be just stuffed animals. They could be life-size stuffed dogs, but they find their way around station. And there's always a home, even after those cuddly things have been abandoned on the ice. Somebody is always happy to find them, to help them, bring a little comfort. I worked for a long time in the station store at McMurdo. And for many winters, there are these little toy dogs that you can get, or cats, that you put batteries in them, and the little stomach raises and lowers and it breathes, and the quote unquote fur on them is kind of realistic. I mean, it's still fake, but the amount of time, Cassa, that people would spend coming into the store to just stand at the desk and pet these breathing, quote unquote, breathing animals, like hours. People would stay in there for hours. The hunger is in us when we're down there for these living things.
They're using this for senior citizens now too. If they're lonely, but they really aren't capable of taking care of a pet themselves, this is something that they're using to help people with loneliness and companionship in a way that's not going to be putting an animal in harm's way. Because again, we don't have animals down there that we can touch, generally speaking. And so it does get to be something that you miss. And especially if you are not in a relationship, but it's somebody who's a huggy, touchy person, you're not actually getting a lot of physical touch sometimes down there. So I totally get this one, actually.
Yeah, I do too. Even when we were selling stuffed animals in the store, I would buy one for myself and I would cuddle it all night long. So it's so important. All right, moving on to the next category. This category is food and drink. And this is going to be a little bit of a future episode of just talking about comfort foods in Antarctica. So we're not going to delve too deeply into this one because this is a very important thing, as you can imagine, when you're far away from home. Thanks for everybody who suggested their favorite things. For my personal life, the very first winter that I was down in Antarctica, onions ran out in May, and we were going to be there till October. And I am just an onion fiend. I love fresh onions. So the next winter that I spent down there, I made weight allowance for 10 pounds of onions, which I stored in a coolish location on the ice. It's the most bizarre thing, but I did it. Like, what a stupid thing to do. But I ate fresh onions on my food, and people were always very like, where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? I'm like, I got a supply. I got a stash. But through our suggestions from other Antarcticans, I realized that, I wasn't even trying hard enough, because we've got a few winners in this category, which I think are funny. Somebody told us they shipped down 40 pounds of fresh produce to ferment for sauerkraut, which they then did over a period of months and made sauerkraut over the season. So I think that's pretty ambitious. We also had somebody, this is a pretty famous person, Rose McAdoo. You can look her up because she does really cool things with cake art and Antarctica cake art and science cake art. But she said she shipped down 6 pounds of fondant and cake decorating ingredients because she's an artist. That's her art. And she made very yummy things for people on the ice too. So I'm just going to mention that in the past, somebody has shipped down enough jello to fill the size of a kiddie pool. And this is just a verifiable fact. Why would you do that? I don't know. But I do believe that amount of jello has appeared on the ice too. So those are some food and drink things. Cassa, I know this is an important thing in your heart too. So what are some of the things that were important for you to have on the ice during the winter that you'd ship to yourself food-wise?
I don't drink coffee. I don't really drink caffeine that much. I am a loose leaf tea fancy lady, I guess. So that was always a big one for me. I always had a lot of tea that I sent down. I was actually more into supplements and things like that. I don't know if this counts actually, but I was really concerned about the vitamins. And I mean, actually the sauerkraut one makes a lot of sense to me because it's like your biome and everything. And we weren't getting that kind of input as much as we would have liked, probably most of us anyway. I mean, I sound like such a hippie, but it's true. I was definitely thinking about what are my supplements I'm going to need, but mostly tea for me. I would maybe ship certain kinds of ramen noodles that I really like, that kind of thing. Actually, especially as I was down there longer, I just didn't do as much of that. But I wasn't somebody that was like a big foodie or anything like that either. So I was not very exciting in this category. It's pretty boring in this category.
I felt like I shipped a lot of food things down, but then as the years went on, I too just realized I didn't need it as much as I thought I did. Like I would take a chocolate bar and I could make that last for months by just taking little bits of it. It was more of a psychological, it's there if you need it, more than I actually needed it, which, that's a big theme of this podcast in general, kind of looking at what you think you need and what you don't. But anyway, I'll just leave it at that. You can make a chocolate bar last a long time, but it's nice to have chocolate when you're far away from home.
Yeah, exactly.
Too.
Yeah. Number 6 is the things that we brought to keep us from getting bored. This is a classic Finji or new guy thing.
It really is.
I mean, actually, it was throughout my seasons too, if I'm honest. Again, it comes back to that aspirational thing of like, I'm going to have so much time to learn how to paper mache life-sized dogs, or I don't know. I had all these aspirations of what I was going to get. I was going to get so bored. And the reality is that when you're down there, there's just so much going on. You're working 60 hours a week. There's a lot of cool people. You do not get bored.
Not at all.
And so that was really funny. And when I first started going down, we weren't doing like CDs or cassette tapes, but I was definitely a digital hoarder. So I always had a lot of hard drives, that kind of thing. We have a library of movies and things like that, and actual books, a book library as well. But there were people bringing down cassette tapes and CDs long times ago. But the winner that I really loved was someone sent down an entire box of textbooks that they didn't read in college with like the intent, I'll definitely read them in Antarctica.
That's the place.
And I can tell you,
I'm going to read them
without
all
knowing even, I can tell you without even knowing this person or who they are or what really happened, they didn't read those books. I guarantee it.
I'm certain.
Anyway, that's category 6. So the next one is,
wait. I just have to say to that person, I believe you, whoever you were who sent those textbooks down, I think you're a procrastinator like me. And I'm just saying, I see you. That's all I'm going to say. I see you. I get
Fair
it.
enough.
I didn't read my college textbooks either, but I probably dragged them around for a while. Okay, next category, right? We're on to number 5. The next category is room decor. People definitely bring things to decorate their rooms because especially in the winters in Antarctica, but this happens in the summer too. In the winter, in the American program, you're likely to get your own room, which is really a luxury on the continent. So then people have all sorts of stuff to do decorating. But we had a lot of things mentioned here, like somebody stepped down Afghan rugs, somebody stepped down like lots of blow up furniture. But I had to pick this one out, and this one kind of made my eyes pop. You are so much more creative people than me in what you'll ship down. Somebody told us that they used their entire weight allowance to ship down 80-year-old cedar shingles to line his bedroom walls. What? I find that amazing. I don't believe this is on station anymore, but I believe that was probably some sort of fire violation, but looks like nothing burned down. And I think that's amazing. Like, I just think that's, wow. I wasn't trying hard enough. That's what I think about that.
Well, the thing that cracks me up about that one too is that the shingles would generally be on the outside of a house. Maybe not always, but they're like, no, they got to be inside of this like generic dorm room.
The roof.
This was a big category for me. I always shipped down. I was a very fabric focused decorator. I would just throw up huge fabric mural things on my walls just to make it feel and cover all the furniture and things. So it just felt more cozy to me. And then every year, I had kind of the same decor and it felt really comforting when I would come back in.
It felt
so
like
it's
home.
Just creating that space for yourself. Yeah. That space for yourself where you can really relax and, recoup your energy because there's a lot of energy that you're expending down there. So it's really important, I think, for people to decorate their rooms in a way that's special for them.
I'm just remembering, I think we had some mutual friends who did a whole climbing cave in their room. Were you down there that winter?
Yes.
I forgot about that till right now, but yeah, you got to make your home what feels good to you personally. It's important for morale, your own personal morale. All right. Well, I believe you're going to tell us about the next category.
So sports and athletics. So we will cover this in other episodes as well, but there's a lot of activities that you can do sports-wise. But there was definitely a category of this that we saw. People were telling us all kinds of interesting things. It was actually a tie for the winner. So somebody talked about sending down a Zorb, which is one of those big clear plastic bubbles that you go into as a human and then roll around in it. I've never actually been in one of these. Have you?
I've been in one that you like put over your head and run around and run into people, but I don't know if I've been in one of the ones that's like hamster wheel style. I think there's two kinds.
Sounds amazing. Yes. Thank God there are two kinds. I mean, who would be able to live with only one kind of
I know,
sword?
right?
So, yeah, so that's one that got sent to Pole, and people loved it, and they used it in the gym. They have a big gym down there. The second item in the tie was unicycle. So again, she's getting mentioned twice actually in this episode, but our friend who brought the bagpipes also brought a unicycle because she had unicycled across the United States and is a very, as you can imagine, proficient unicycler.
That's right.
Not just from that experience, from many years of practice. So those to me are just like chef's kiss of amazing
so good
athletic sports gear to bring down.
And that's not the only unicycle. Like there have been more unicycles besides that one. I know there's at least one other, maybe two other unicycles bopping around the ice or that people have brought down. So I'm going to mention a couple other more, Cassa, because somebody brought down their aerialist stuff. I know lots of people who have brought down kiting stuff. Somebody brought a paraglider. I don't even... What? Like, where are you paragliding? Probably nowhere where anybody in charge could have seen you. But you know what I mean? Like, people are bringing athletic equipment that matters down there. Because again, this is like you're trying to have some semblance of what is normal for you, whatever that means. And again, Antarcticans are weirdos and I love us for it. So there are some like out there things that people bring down. But yeah, I wasn't trying hard enough at all in this category. Okay, number 3. This is a category where I feel like I was not trying to think hard enough because I think the things we're going to mention aren't actually that exceptional, but you know, it is a category of stuff that people bring down. You know, people mention different lotions and potions. For me, I always like to have different things that smelled different, you know, different scents of things for my mood day to day. That was important to me. I would bring down the kind of conditioner that would keep my hair nice and smooth in the way that I wanted to, that I couldn't find in the ice. But somebody, I guess our winner in this one, brought down a paraffin hand wax dip crockpot. And I don't even really understand this. Cassa, you brought this one up. So do you want to talk about this?
Yes, I love to talk about this one because we used to have spa day. We started doing that, I think, in the winter of 13. I mean, other people I'm sure have done it, but we would take over a whole lounge. We would make this like spa evening for people, anybody who wanted to come. And it was awesome, actually. But somebody shipped one of these down. It's like it's like a crock pot, but it's for paraffin hand wax. And so you melt these bricks of hand wax in there. You dip your hand in, you let it sit in there for a minute and you pull it out. And then you have these weird like wax gloves. And what it does is it just really moisturizes your hands because I will not lie, like my first season in particular, my hands were cracking so badly before I learned how to take care of them a little bit better. And so it becomes like a real painful problem that a lot of people will have. And so I totally get why someone shipped this down. It just cracks me up. Like, oh, I better make sure I've got my like paraffin hand wax dip. And then of course I inherited it and used it for years. Especially down there, I found that when I'm wearing Carhartts and not steel-toed boots, but hard-toed boots every day and working with machines, and not that there's any masculine or feminine to that inherently, I just find that I want to express myself creatively in this kind of way as well. So it was always really important to me to bring down some of these things and enjoy them. I mean, I always had lots of makeup that I would play with. Right.
Yeah, that's true. There are some people who are makeup artists actually and can do these amazing creations. And that's another personal care thing that people bring down. I know, and we're not doing this category justice because I'm just not being very creative about it. But, you know, we see you in all the wacky things that people bring down. All right, Cassa, you're in with the next category.
Yes. So this one is about hobbies. So we talked a little bit about aspirational things as well, but also just the things that we do that we love to do and that are really, really fun. I'm a big crafter. We have a craft room down there that has lots of materials that the program buys and that you can share throughout the community. And actually, a lot of times you really need that stuff for repairing your gear or making sure that your clothes are still functional after 13 months down there in some cases. So my favorite in this category was there were a lot of sewing machines that came up. People were saying, oh, I needed my sewing machine. And that was great. And I love that because a lot of people do bring their own down, even though we have some public ones so that they can make sure that they really work really well and they're servicing them and that kind of thing. But my sister got a special sewing machine briefcase that is custom to the type of sewing machine that she has, it's a regular sewing machine. It's not like an industrial one or something. And it's got like special molded foam and all this stuff. And it's like, that's one of the things that she brought down every year and brought back as part of her luggage allowance was her little sewing machine. It's important. Briefcase. It is important. And especially for her, I mean, she quilts. That's like her relaxation activity and does all kinds of different sewing. And so it just made me laugh so hard because it was like, that's something that she really used. That was not an aspirational thing. That was something that she really used. And she wanted to protect it. You know, it was definitely an investment for her. Another one that we we saw a lot of was like, well, my second favorite one was leather working gear. It's something I really hadn't considered. There's many, many things that people bring down, but people get really into leather working sometimes down there. And it's like so interesting to me. It feels like such a lost art, but you see like some really elaborate things. You were telling me about something that you bought that was super elaborate.
Oh yeah, somebody made me this gorgeous leather guitar strap where he had carved a whole scene of McMurdo Station in it, from the plains to the uppercase storms to the mountains. It's just this whole vignette. He wanted to sell it to me for like $40. I'm like, Alan, I'm paying you a lot more money for this. It's this kind of thing I would pay hundreds of dollars for here out in the real world. I think I did give him a fair price on it, but I just blew me away how artistic he was. And he had picked up leatherworking on ice and made this thing I'll never see. It's so beautiful. I can't even believe how exceptional it is. So yeah, it's amazing what people do. I'll mention that people have they were telling me, when we asked that group, they were shipped whole computers down and electronics to tinker on. Somebody shipped down like actual wool to spin, like old timey, like spindly turning it. The hobbies that come down are just, they're so cool. I'm not trying hard enough again.
Yeah.
Okay, so have we run through quickly? We're already at half an hour, but we're going to keep going because we'll make this one a little bit longer. There's the last category, and we call this category etc., which is just the things that we can't even really quantify what they are. So I want to mention quickly a couple of things, and then we'll come in with our honorable mention and our winner, because I think the winner is a pretty good one. But a few of my just favorite off the cuff things where somebody sent down 3 pounds of receipts so they could do their taxes on ice, because of course you're cut off kind of from the reliable mail service in the winter. So I think that's a funny thing to bring down. One of those like inflatable kind of guys you see outside of a used car place that are like, yay, and the air goes up and just wave around. Hilarious thing to have on the ice.
Gotta have.
Oh my gosh, gotta have one of those.
Sure.
Cassa, talk about the ones that we've sort of selected to be exceptional.
Well, my favorites are the 100-pack of condoms.
Good luck. Good luck,
so
sir.
Maybe more, again, lady. Aspirational. Yes.
Whoever that was.
Yeah, someone was thinking that they were going to have a really fun season. And then maybe they brought 300 and they only
did really well.
And that was just the 100 pack. Yeah.
That is a good one.
That one really made me laugh. The other one that I thought was super funny was this auto renewal of pet food. So not many years ago, we started to be able to get Amazon down there. And someone said that they still had an auto renewal of their Amazon pet food order, and it got shipped down to the ice. So as we mentioned, there's no cats down there. There's no animals down there to feed. So there's just these random cans of cat food still kind of floating around on station. And then it turned out to be the roommate's
It wasn't
cat.
even her cat.
Nope.
Such a good one.
That made me laugh.
All right. But those weren't even the best of them. When we had to think about it, somebody sent down this pink Hot Wheel, like the tricycle kind. And it sounds like it didn't last very long, but people were racing it up and down on the dirty volcanic rock roads of McMurdo. And that sounds like a real good time. But the winner, the absolute winner, Cassa, I'm going to have you announce what the exceptional, what did you bring to Antarctica thing was.
I just want to preface this with,
this was years ago.
This happened many, many years ago. You would not do this now. Someone said that they brought down a waterbed mattress and had a waterbed in their room in the winter, I think. So this maybe been the 80s in the winter, I would imagine, which just really cracked me up because it's like, yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing to bring down.
I think that person lived in comfort it sounds like for a lot of years, for as many years as they were on the ice, which is more than 1 or 2.
Exactly. It's like, well, they know what they want.
That's so ambitious. This doesn't even give the list of people who offered their suggestions. It doesn't even do it justice. This was just a few things that we pulled out, of our own brains and other people's brains. I just want to take it one step further and say there were mentions of many, many people who, for various reasons, showed up on the ice with nothing at all, including 2 or 3 people who mentioned they went to start their contract in actual flip-flops and shorts and just picked up their cold weather gear that was given out as part of being part of the program. And like we said, there's so much stuff, especially on the biggest station, McMurdo Station. They were able to fully clothe themselves, fully get all of their personal toiletries, all of it, and they didn't have to bring a thing. And all of these other Antarcticans that were just in this article that I was talking about, they didn't bring a lot either. So, there's different ways of going about bringing stuff to the ice. You don't have to bring all of the things, although I find it funnier when you do. So don't stop, Antarcticans. And I guess the other thing, that I really realized when I was down there, as the years went on, people will laugh when they hear this because I still show up every Antarctic contract with every ounce of my luggage allowance taken, even though my resolution is to not have that much stuff. But I really didn't need all those things to be happy. I've brought a lot of things to Antarctica, like the college textbook guy, that I thought, this is what I'm going to do while I'm here. I'm going to do all this music. I'm going to learn this craft. I'm going to do this thing or that thing. And in fact, those things were just crutches for me. Like it was just the reassurance of knowing those things were present. That was a comforting thing, but I never really needed those things. Like I've learned that now. And that's the thing the bottom of the world has taught me, I guess. What do you think about that, Cassa?
I totally agree. I think that this is something I've done my whole life. It's like you're planning for a trip, so you want to make sure you have the right gear and all these kinds of things. And so I think that's just a part of us preparing ourselves emotionally and mentally by focusing on the physical first. And it gets taken to the nth degree when we're down at the bottom of the world and we just really don't know what to expect ever. So we're trying to protect ourselves. We're trying to go, well, in this case, I'll have this thing. And as you get down there longer and longer, you start to realize like, yeah, actually, I don't really need that stuff. But I think that's like with anything. It's like people having babies or people buying houses or anything like that, where they're just trying to create a reality for themselves that's a little bit different than what they have at the moment.
Yeah. Well, and of course that plays into, we're trying to have missions for people who are kind enough to stick with this podcast to kind of bring it back and apply it to lives off of the ice. And we were talking about this. And Cassa, do you want to talk about what our penguin hop that we would like people to take or think about this week is?
Yeah, our little baby stuff, basically penguin hop. It's essentially this idea of thinking about what you really need. And it's not even necessarily need in terms of physical food, shelter, clothing. It's more like need in terms of things that really give you joy, right? And things that bring you joy. What do you think is important about what you might need as you think about your next adventure? And are those things really as important as you think they are? Some of them are. Some of them totally are. And some of them really help serve that purpose for us. But other times, yeah, we don't really need those things. So I think it's really important to kind of discern and figure out what feels great and cut away the things that don't feel awesome so that you can actually focus on what feels great.
Yeah, to have a bigger, better life, to have the thing that you might want to get to next. Not that your life might not be great right now, but to move on, taking stock of what served you before and what doesn't serve you anymore. That can help you step into the next part of a thing that will just be the better answer for you as you move forward. That's what we're thinking about this week. And thanks again to everybody who contributed to this episode, way more than us.
Yes.
Hi out there, Antarcticans. We see you and we love you. Many of you are our friends. And until next week, thanks for listening to Antarctica Did That For Me.
Thanks for listening to the Antarctica Did That For Me podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support our efforts, we would love it if you would tell your friends. And if you leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, it will help us find more of our fellow adventurers. We release a new episode every Tuesday, and we are a video and audio podcast, so you can watch or just listen. We're on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and more, or find everything, including links to our social media, at our website, antarcticadidthatforme.com. Thanks again for listening, and until next week, keep thinking about what opening your own heart to adventure could do for you.